And welcome back. As we go ahead and get ready to create our next game, we're going to go ahead and approach this first through the lens of some design. So the first thing we want to do, of course, is to create our own game design document. So here I'm going to actually give you kind of a micro challenge. I want you to kind of use the framework that we have established from our previous documents, everything from our Quizmaster game to our recent Monstervania. But what we ultimately want to do is create a game design document that's going to outline the following concepts. So we're going to do kind of a space shooter for this one. We want to have it avoid enemy waves that try to attack and kill you. And it's ultimately going to have the player shoot and destroy those enemies in order to earn points. So what do we need to have in our document? Well, we need to, of course, decide what our game flow is. So if we think about this game, there are, of course, many games that are very similar to this, but ultimately the game is going to transition through three primary screens. We're going to have a start menu, and that start menu is going to pretty much offer us two options. Can we play or do we quit? We should have some kind of game screen where things actually happen. So this is going to show things such as the enemies and the player. The player will probably be in the center of the screen or maybe like down towards the bottom to go ahead and start off the action. And we'll have other elements such as like a health bar be present. And then last screen we want to have is a game over screen that also displays the score. And that game over screen would, of course, give us an option to return back to the main menu, giving us that option to, again, start back over to play or to quit. If we actually look at the design of what we want to do, well, let's take a look at this. So our theme is a space shooter. Our player experience this time is going to be much more frantic because we're going to have to deal with multiple elements at a time. And so we're going to have a big emphasis on avoidance because we don't want to get hit. Our core mechanic, we're going to focus on shooting enemies and avoiding lasers. And our game loop is really just going to be at one single level with endless waves until the player health is 0. If we dive a little deeper into our gameplay analysis, what are those things that we need to have, right? So our primary features. Well, the primary features are going to be player and enemy movement. We're going to spawn enemy waves, and we're going to update the player health. That is the core things that we need for our game. So we have to have these three things down in our game in order to have the game that we want to have. Now the secondary features are things that are a little bit more improvements, right? So they help get that next level to our game. So we're going to have things like shooting to our game. We're going to be able to update enemy health because maybe we want to have them take, for example, certain enemies may take more than one hit to destroy. Some enemies can only take one hit. We also want to be able to update the player's score because, you know, maybe that score is going to be used for things like, hey, every 1,000 points you earn an extra life or something like that. And then, of course, we can add bonus features to the game such as visual effects, sound effects, menus, screens, bonus levels, these sorts of things that can, really take our game beyond what we are going to have as our base design. Now, our base design, again, remember, we'll have endless levels, but you might say, you know what, maybe it's not endless levels. Maybe I only want to have 10 waves of enemies, and then we have like a bonus level, and then you have another level where it's going to be another 10 waves of enemies or something like that. You can, of course, come up with different things. You could even have maybe different game modes from your menu. That menu might say, maybe you want to just play and you just have unlimited waves of enemies coming at you, or you have one where it's more strategic and you have two different levels will have different types of enemies at different formations and things like that. So what do we actually need, though, to get started? Well, here's the challenge, of course, that I outlined for you. You need to, of course, create your own game design document. And I'm also going to challenge you this time to locate online or to create your own sprites for the following. So we're going to need, of course, a player spaceship. We're going to need multiple enemy spaceships, ideally, at least 2, so we can have different types of enemies. We want to have projectiles, so things such as the player and enemy projectiles, because we're going to have the enemy shooting at us, but we're also going to have the player probably wanting to shoot back at the enemies to destroy them. We're also going to want to have some kind of background sprite because we're going to want to have the player and enemy move across some kind of backdrop. It could, of course, be a static backdrop. We could have multiple different kind of backdrops that we can put in here. We're also going to want to get resources for our fonts because we're going to want to use something other than the default font that is loaded in Unity. And we're also going to need some UI sprites to help us manage things such as like our health bar or maybe our score and stuff like that. So go ahead and challenge yourself, create your game design document, get those sprites. I will, of course, have access to creating my own, and I want to see what you can have ready for when we actually go next time setting up our project.